Alright guys, just as a way of opening, I'd like to get a show of hands or maybe someone can answer this. What do you think the number one fear of the human being is?
Being alone.
Death.
Going alone.
What did you say there? Public speaking, you're right. The second biggest fear of the human? Death, you're right. Death. What that means? What that means, together, is that at the average funeral, you would rather be the one in the casket than giving the eulogy. So here I am today, up in front of you guys, and as Chris said, I am going to give you a bit of a talk about how being a parent has improved, I think, by testing. Okay, my daughter, she's 6.5 years old. She loves to draw treasure maps for me. What she does is she runs into the house, she finds something from the house, and then she'll take it out into the garden and hide it somewhere, and then go and draw a little treasure map for me. She can't help herself though. When she is done with the map, she brings it to me, and then she tells me exactly how to get there and what the treasure actually is. So this is a little bit of sort of a treasure map as to where we're going this evening. Those are sort of the topics that I'm going to talk about. And I'm hoping that the treasure is not going to be at the end when I stop talking. It's going to be some like nuggets that you guys will find along the way, something that you can take back to your workplace. Cool. So here we go. A little bit about me. I have worked at these institutions as a software tester. I began my career as a software tester in 2004, so I've been doing it for a little while now. I started out working at the Royal Bank of Scotland in Edinburgh, and I worked for quite a few companies over there, and then I got married, and my wife and I, she's also from Cape Town, I grew up here as well, decided that we would come back to Cape Town to start our family. The unusual way, we didn't fly back, we drove back. Bought ourselves a Land Rover in Scotland and drove back, so perhaps that's a talk for another day. It was a fun adventure. We took 4 months, traveled 23,000 kilometers, 24 countries, and used 5,500 liters of diesel. So global warming is actually largely my fault. But as I said, what I wanted to talk to you today about is these two little characters that came along shortly after we got back. Kyla on the left there is 6.5 years old, and Joel is turning 5 next week. People often mistake them for twins. We had them super close together so that they will hopefully grow up best friends, and also so that we can get through the chaos of the baby phase as quickly as possible. Seems to have worked. We think we're through that now, although each age brings an entirely new set of challenges along with it, right? So that's them. And that is me. That is me just before kids. You can see I still have a full head of hair. I said there's no grey in there, and I have enough time to manicure a perfect beard. Now I just look scruffy. When the kids came along, my wife and I, now we're providers and caregivers, so we bought a home close to schools, nice and responsible, cool, winning at this parenting thing. What I soon realized after they arrived, though, is that that's not the end of the story. You also need to have the job title of doctor. In the first week of Kyla's life, my Google searches were things like, is baby poop really supposed to be that bright orange color? And since then I've become an expert at bandaging the tiniest of little grazes and putting ice onto boo-boos, and yeah, so the doctor is part of the job description as well as teacher. Kids are like sponges when they are growing up. They learn everything from you. The way you do things, the way you interact with people, it's just everything about them. They're learning all the time, and so I picked that up quite quickly. And when they reach, so for the first 4 years, it's all about watching what you're doing. But when they reach 4, for those of you who are parents here, you'll know this phase. Everything is about why, and it's not just like material knowledge that they're trying to get. It's it's moral things as well. So my son last week at the dinner table asked me, like, Dad, why mustn't I lie after I caught him out for lying? So it's difficult questions. There's other roles. Policemen, I'm constantly policing them, not just from fighting with each other, but policing things like bedtime. So my daughter and my son are in 2 separate rooms next to each other, and we fight with them to get to actually stay in the bedrooms. One night it got really, really bad, and they kept getting up. And it, like, as a parent, you escalate and escalate and escalate, and you just at your wits' end. And so we tried putting Kyla into the garage to sleep in the car in the garage, and that didn't work. So then we tried throwing her out into the garden, and she was screaming in the garden, and we thought, no, actually, like, child services, actually, any child services people in the audience, I'm going to tone down some of my stories. And the final straw was when I went into their room and I said, guys, if you get up again, I am going to cut the limbs off your beloved teddy bears.
Wow.
And I thought, that's it, that has got to be enough. And they got up again. And so I got the biggest pair of scissors that I could find. And I went into the room. I've never seen such terror on their faces. But we didn't hear from them again for the night. I started cutting, but I didn't actually cut them. So policeman is another role. And there's plenty of others. So adventurer, mechanic, DIY expert, plumber. I've had to fetch full toilet rolls out from toilet systems. And for the first like 5 or 6 years, I think, well, I don't know, I'll find out when they stop seeing me as superhero. Like, it just seems to be that kids see their parents as superheroes. So I learned that it's not just enough to be caregiver and provider. There's all these other roles that come along with it. And where I'm going with this, bear with me, is if you take this back into the workplace, so I do like to read, and when it's not Roald Dahl or the Gruffalo, there are a couple of really good testing blogs that I like to read up on. One I was reading just a few months ago was talking about the idea of a professional Scrum developer, and that's not a developer in the traditional sense that we think about, like a person that writes code that makes its way into production, but it's anyone that has a part to play in a Scrum team. So anyone that is involved in getting the code to production, and these are the traditional roles that we see in that space. Obviously, test analyst, and we've got all of those other things. We as parents have a similar experience when it comes to Scrum, being part of a Scrum team, not just test analyst. I'm not just a caregiver and a provider, but you can play these other roles as well. You can, if you want to, you can play the role of a programmer. And I'm just like throwing examples out there. So perhaps not writing code that's going to make its way into production, but if you feel comfortable, like sitting with a developer and doing a code review, or if it's a story that you're particularly comfortable with the requirements for, like actually write the story for the team. It takes an empathy to understand what the other people around you are doing, and to get involved. Obviously, you have to have a passion for the delivery. So that's kind of where I'm going with that. What I'm not saying though, okay. So back to the blog that I read. This is sort of the idea that I got. T-shaped tester, someone that has a deep knowledge of their field of expertise, and then is comfortable playing in some other space of one of the other team roles. So think about this when you go back to work, and just think about where else you'd be comfortable playing. In the analyst role, it doesn't have to be all of them, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to play in all. And what I'm not saying, like don't try and be this poor rhino. He is never going to be a unicorn. He is basically trying to be all of those things. Right? So I'm not saying go and try and kill yourself learning coding or learning to be the best business analyst. Like, I'm never going to be the best surgeon and plumber, but I'm happy to take a role in those certain areas and rely on the experts for the real goodness. Okay, then I'm just going to quickly breeze over some other cool critical soft skills that I think relate quite nicely to parenting and to testing. The first of them is to ask the right questions at the right time. It's crucial that you get both of those parts together, so you can't ask the wrong questions at the right time and can't ask the right questions at the wrong time. We in the family have a tradition where we sit down every evening, the four of us, and we have a meal together, and the kids know and expect that that is going to be an opportunity for us to ask them about their day. If we come home, if I just arrive home from work and they're sitting watching the TV or they're playing outside and I ask them how was your day, it's a bit like going over to a developer who's got their headphones on and they're deep in code and asking them to come and quickly see something on your screen. You're not going to get a good answer out of them. That's not the right question, that's not the right time. So the right time for us is dinner time. In the workplace, the right time for sort of formal questioning is your backlog grooming and your sprint planning meetings. Those are the times where you should really be questioning your team and asking the right questions. So, how was your day? Just generally doesn't get a great answer. Usually just fine or okay. There's another blog that I follow from a friend of mine who I respect greatly. He came up with 250 questions and kind of like conversation starters for the dinner table. Things like, and it might sound cliche, but things like, if today was an animal, if today was represented as an animal, what kind of animal would it be and why? And you'll be amazed what little 6-year-olds will come up with and how much like deep conversation you can have around that. So think about ways to ask questions that aren't just going to get meaningless or surface answers from people in these meetings. And obviously it's not just, I'm not only talking about the formal opportunities that you get to ask questions, but if you see something and you see a need or an emotion that you want to dig into a little deeper, then take those opportunities, but make sure it's the right time. That's the first one. And then obviously the second half of that is listening properly. Now this is not like Jacob Zuma's listen properly. This is really like engaging with what your children watch. So in my case, there's two sides to this. It's removing the distractions that you have in your life and then trying not to interrupt what they're saying. So my wife, when I presented this to her, was nodding like heavily at me when we were talking about interruptions, because when she says something, I'm already thinking about what she said and how I can solve it and what sort of answers I can give to her, and that is not like good listening. So I've learned that, and I'm still trying to improve that. But when I come home and when my wife comes home, we take our cell phones and we put them into like an ice cream tubby in the kitchen. So removal of the distraction, the time that's crucial with the kids, and it sits there until bedtime. You can check the phone, but you need to go to the phone, take it out the box, check it there, and then put it back. And so conversations that you have with your children are not face to screen to face, as a lot of people do, sort of the screen is in between. They're face to face. And make sure that you don't interrupt. So where you're listening to what someone is saying to you, don't interrupt them. Yeah, that's something very crucial for meetings as well. This was a little bit controversial in my family. We're talking now about wants versus needs. And my son saw me making the slide, and he basically like came and sat on my lap and started salivating. So this to him is like definitely a need, not a want. But the way that the shops are designed these days, as a parent, you'll know, like if you're a parent, getting to the checkout is just it's chaos. Like the sweet aisles, they're there and they're at kid height, and they're designed for parents who've had like rough days who are just going to give in. But we do know as parents what our kids need and what our kids want. And I would put it to you that as test analysts, we also understand the software that we're testing and the business that we're in, sometimes better than the business stakeholders themselves, and sometimes better than our developers who have maybe more narrow view of the code, and sometimes even better than our business analysts. From my experience, I've seen test analysts who know the systems the best. So try and recognize